So, I know that I said I wouldn't be doing another challenge video in the World of Light video, but I can't help myself. Let's go over the rules. One is, I can't switch off my original Pixie once I get her, and before I get her, I can only use my normal attack and not any special moves. Also, no external enhancements except for the speed button, since save states are cheating. The third rule is that I have to be playing on the hardest difficulty. Now that that's out of the way, let's look at my run. I watch the intro, choose new game, and select our gender. I decided to go male MC because I want this to be a more traditional run of Persona 3. I choose Maniac as my difficulty, and then I start the game. We got off the train to Iwatoad as I realized something strange. All the lights went out, coffins were everywhere, and the moon was much bigger and more scary. Even so, Makoto walks through like an absolute boss, not even fazed by anything. We get to our new school dorm and meet an unknown boy who gives us a contract. I sign my name as Oasis Arisato, and so it begins. We meet some of the cast, and then we have to go to sleep. On our first day of school, we meet Junpei, and then the next day visit the Velvet Room where we meet Igor and Elizabeth. On the night of the full moon, we get attacked by a giant shadow. Yukari and Makoto try to escape on the roof, but...
You gotta be kidding me! It climbed up the wall?
Yukari tries and fails to summon her persona, so we have to save her. We ended up awakening to that disgusting Orpheus and then Thanatos. The cutscene, so I'm not going to count it, but come on! After that, the remaining parts of the shadow attack Yukari, so we have to save her again. So, for the tutorial, I'm only allowed to use my normal attack because using any of Orpheus' special moves would be cheating. I actually died once because one of the shadows got a lucky critical hit, but the second time I beat them with no trouble. Since I used so much energy using Thanatos, I collapsed and then woke up a week later in the hospital. The next day, I joined C's, starting the Fool social link. The next day, Junpei joins us, so we can finally go into Tartarus. Mitsuru only lets us go up one floor, but during that period, I get the only persona we're going to be using in this run, Pixie. The next day, we go back to get the first block done in one night. One cool thing about Portable is that you can only get tired once you leave Tartarus, so you can spend a long time in there if you use the clock to your advantage. The first boss was 3 Venus Eagles. The main problem was that Junpei is weak to wind, and I can't kick him out of the party because he's our biggest damage giver. Because I was underleveled, this took me a few tries, but I eventually got it.
Keep up.
The second boss is much harder because they have all elemental magic, are resistant to magic, and are weak against strike moves, which I don't have right now. Using magic gems certainly helped because they did as much as an all-out attack at this point, and I had lots of them, and because of that, I beat it on the first try. As for the third boss, this one was a problem. At least that's what I would say, but I was able to use Pulplina on it twice, so it never did actual damage.
That was close.
After I grinded to level 10 and reached the top, we finished the first block of Tartarus. In the next 3 days I start the Magician, Chariot, and Hierophant social links. 2 days later, and I start the Emperor social link. Later on, I fuse Sphornius, which gives me the Tarukaja skill card, which will help a lot with bosses. After that, I start the Hermit social link, and Elizabeth tells me about her requests. Since I got a certain item from a quest beforehand, Elizabeth gives me the Meraki skill card, being my first multi-target move. A few days later, the second full moon arrives, and this time Mitsuru senses a powerful shadow on the train. The enemies are very easy to beat, and once we get to the front of the train, we find the new boss. This boss was a joke. It doesn't have that much HP, and it kept trying to summon her minions to distract us, but I just ignored them. Within 2 minutes, the boss goes down.
Dude.
The next day, Elizabeth phones to tell us that the next block of Tartarus is open. A few days later, Akihiko joins the party, and I decide to challenge the first boss of the new block. The crying tables don't really put up much of a fight. They only use fire and poison spells, which don't do much damage to us. Without too many problems, the crying tables are defeated. After that, the exam scores were posted and we got in the top 10. Later on, I decided to go to Tartarus again to give the second boss a shot. And this is the first boss that caused us major problems because 1, it was very tanky. 2, it has Magarula, which is Junpei's weakness. And 3, it has poison-inducing moves. Near the end, Makoto got a lucky critical hit and we were able to finish it off with an all-out attack. A few floors later and I make it to the top and we're done with the first half of the second block. For getting the second old document, Elizabeth gives us the Recarm skill card, which means that I don't need to rely on revival beads anymore. A few days later, and I have to listen to Junpei's Believe It or Don't. And now we have 5 days to find out more information about Fuka Yamagishi, an individual who could possibly have the potential just like us. Now, Yukari's just going to do that all for us, so in that period I max out the Chariot social link and start the Moon social link with Nozomi. We find out that some idiot high school girls locked Fuka in the gymnasium overnight, and she was never seen again. We later determine that she's trapped inside Tartarus, and we have to save her by entering the same way she did. When we get in Tartarus, we get temporarily separated from everyone else, and I have to go through floors to find everyone. I pretty much avoid all the enemies so I don't lose HP or SP, and eventually we find everyone. Immediately after, we find Fuka, and then we head back to the entrance. We come back to find Mitsuru and Yukari getting absolutely clowned on by the next full moon boss. Fuka then awakens to her new persona, and now we have to fight the shadows. This was one of those bosses that's 2 bosses, and one's weak to physical while the other's weak to magic. The point is to use Fuka to tell you their weaknesses because they'll change their affinities throughout the fight, but I already knew them beforehand. The Empress doesn't even get a chance to attack, and we take out the Emperor in a few turns.
I've been waiting for this.
The day after, the antique shop is open. You know those gemstones and items you get from beating shadows? They're the currency at this shop, and you can even get skill cards from here. The next day, Fuka joins us as our navigator. Although she isn't nearly as good as Rise in Persona 4 Golden, she's better than Mitsuru, and we take those. Speaking of Mitsuru, because Fuka is our nav, Mitsuru now joins us as a party member. Later, we start the Death social link with Pharaohs, and eventually get the Moon social link high enough for us to fuse Gur, who gives us his Growth 1 skill card. There's actually a shrine in Iwatodai that has some spirit that copies skill cards for us, so I immediately start farming Growth 1 at the shrine. I decide to get the next block of Tartars out of the way early, and this first boss is really strong, being able to one-shot my party members easily, and since I don't have Matsurunda, I can't debuff them all. And I need Akihiko to attack with it because electricity are the beetle's weaknesses anyway. It took me a few tries, but I managed to pull through.
I've been waiting for this.
The second boss I could actually beat, but I decided to grind with Mitsuru so I can get Bufula so the fight goes faster. It has Magarula, but it never actually used it. Overall, 2 out of 5 fight. A few floors later, and I make it to the top of Tartarus. I'm still editing more of the vid, but I want to do parts instead so I don't go without uploading for too long. And I think I'm going to release an episode monthly, and I want to do more Smash Bros. Content, maybe some Mario Kart if I feel like it. But yeah, I definitely think this is going to be, monthly. I don't feel like dumping it onto one video. But anyway, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.